Good morning. Nice of you guys to drop by.
What a piece of junk. What are you talking about?
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
Look, don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine. Trust me.
I don't know what all this trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault. Don't get technical with me.
This bickering is pointless.
Don't everybody thank me at once.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
I'm glad you're here to tell us these things.
How could you even say that?
I got a bad feeling about this.
Well, come on. Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Would you get going, you pirate?
Get in there, you big furry oaf! I don't care what you smell!
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust.
I like the sound of that.
Get a shuttle ready.
I don't know. Fly casual.
Shuttle Tydirium, what is your cargo and destination?
Transmission commencing.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jim Chadwick. I am captain of the Shuttle Tydirium podcast, the mothership of Casual X-wing. I have sitting next to me my co-host, Phil Mead. How you doing, Phil?
Doing fine. If any of the passengers tonight have a Galaxy Note 7 with them, we'd like you to please turn that over to our cabin crew. Those are Class B explosive devices under Imperial law now, so they must be confiscated.
Right, because you're probably a rebel. All right, we also have our co-pilot, our chief engineer, Jake. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing good. And yes, as we all know, all those devices, those Samsungs, are notoriously known for carrying Death Star secret plans.
Yes. We know you're not on a diplomatic mission from Alderaan.
Exactly.
We also have with us our protocol droid, J-Bot. How you doing?
I'm a little upset since apparently the news got out and I have to find a new way of moving my explosive devices around the Imperium, but I guess I'll make do with all of the other ones y'all don't know about yet.
All right. Well, that makes me a little nervous, but excellent. We got another episode here, another exciting one, and we're going to go straight into a captain's question that was sent to us from Phil. Who sent it to us?
Dan Johnson.
Dan Johnson in an email. So he talked about, I think he's in the UK. He said he went to a tournament that was Wave 1, 2, and 3 only. So only ships and upgrades from Wave 1, 2, and 3 were allowed. And he asked us, what would we take? And I thought that'd be a good captain's question. So any guys want to go first?
I can go first since mine will be pretty easy.
Okay.
I think it was, and I might be wrong here on the ships since I don't remember when I started, if it was Wave 3, Wave 4. But mine is actually the B team that I did, I think, way back. It might have been the first B team, or pretty close to it, which is my twin Hawks with ion cannons and the cornhorn.
But wait, he wasn't around then.
I thought the E-Wings were around in Wave 3.
That's Wave 4.
No, they were not.
Oh, see, You guys did it wrong. Y'all posted in the email that he was here, and so there went my whole list. Like I said,
actually, I completely can pull up that email, and I did point out which ones were, and it was not an E-wing. It was a B-wing, but not an E-wing.
All right, I'll take your word for it. So that was my list, really fast.
All right. So Jake, what about you?
Well, this should come as no surprise to you, but my list from back in the good old days of X-Wing gaming involved a Shuttle Tydirium, and it involved 2 Saber Squadron pilots for the TIE Interceptors. So my Shuttle Tydirium was the, or I keep saying Shuttle Tydirium, which is funny, the land shuttle that I had was a Colonel Gendon, and I would put on for his crew Darth Vader and a Rebel captive. I thought that was the coolest combo back in the day. I would give it a shield upgrade, And then for both of my TIE interceptors, I would give them stealth devices, because that was my absolute favorite thing to put on TIE interceptors, and it totally made sense to me. And then that was obviously far before the Phantoms came into play, and then stealth devices had a whole new meaning. But
yes,
yeah, that was basically my favorite kind of early type of list. I always loved running the Lambda. It was like the biggest ship that we had at the time, and I always put Darth Vader on it because I thought that was the coolest crew upgrade card in the entire game. So that was kind of my list.
I never really flew Darth Vader crew. That was never quite my thing. The whole self-destructing part. I'd make the enemies earn their kill, so instead of doing it myself. But he was pretty popular back in the day on Lambda shuttles. I mean, not that he's not now, but
right.
But yeah. All right. Good list. What about you, Phil?
Let's see. So, what I would like to run for fun if I was magically transported back to Wave 3 times would be 2 Blue Squadron B-Wings with advanced sensors. Those are pretty standard. A prototype pilot, and Horton Psalm with 2 proton torpedoes. So that's kind of my... I want to run Horton Psalm and kill something with him.
Something.
This might be able to do that.
So you didn't even get charted and refit back in Wave 3, did
That's
you?
right. That came later.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, B-Wings are pretty big.
Sure.
I always liked X-Wings, but B-Wings did kind of nudge out the X-Wing. And I'll actually go with, from what I recall from my list from back in the day that I won tournaments with, I'll admit that I don't quite recall exactly which EPT on the first guy, but I'm just kind of off the top of my head, I think I'll go with that. So it was pretty much, this is the one I won all through waves 1, 2, and 3, variations of this list. But it starts off with Darth Vader in an X1, and I gave him Determination. And I can't recall if that was actually the one that I used or not, but Determination was the one I'm going with now. Basically, any pilot crits you ignore, and he never loses his 2 abilities. And pretty much that's it. That's it on Darth Vader. Just him with Determination. I didn't give him engine upgrade, oh my gosh, shocks. But that and Backstabber, they were my flanking force. Because I had as my main anvil, I had Dark Curse, who you can't use any re-rolls or anything on, 2 Obsidian Squadron pilots, and Academy pilot. They were basically my anvil there in the middle. And on the flanks were Vader and Backstabber coming up. And I'd be able to shift the varied speed. So whoever you went for, if you gunned towards Vader and such, then they would slow down. The other guys would speed up and hit you in the flanks. And if you went towards the main block, I would try to get it so that Dark Curse was the only one you could shoot at range 3, and you never really got to do, you never got to modify dice. So usually, hopefully, 4 green dice and a focus would see him through. I mean, sometimes he spectacularly died, but otherwise, then Darth Vader and Backstabber would hit you, aim for the same target. They would pretty much nail somebody, and all the other remaining TIE fighters would finish him off if he wasn't dead already. But I won a lot of tournaments with that list. I beat Soontirfels. I beat lots of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
And the Obsidian Squadron pilots were actually quite good against other Imperials because they would always go just Academies. And that one little pip of that one upgrade to Pilot School 3 would actually get me above rookie pilots and above Academies. And there were times that the Academies would fly up, and I would fly my Obsidians right behind them, and it was spectacular.
Nice.
So, yeah, I missed that list. It was actually pretty fun. But, all right. Thanks a lot for that captain's question. I appreciate it. But, cool. Ooh, what is this? Hunk of metal on the ground. It's a, it's a restraining
That looks a lot like a restraining bolt.
Oh, boy. That doesn't bode well.
No.
Where's J-Bot?
J-Bot, you doing okay?
Yeah, not so much now that you mention it.
Luke, you will go to the Dagobah system.
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
Luke, go to the Dagobah system.
It just isn't fair.
No, I don't even know what I'm doing here. We're wasting our time.
Your insight served you well.
I recently, well, it's actually just over this past weekend, I went to a board gaming convention. I'm not sure if people are super familiar with those, but maybe they are. And I might make some people angry listening to this. So this might be the end of JBot completely. But there are some things that I'm going to point out. I don't know how many of you guys have gone to a lot of conventions in your lives, but I've been to quite a few. I actually really enjoy it, but there's some things that I really need to point out for people. This isn't necessarily X-Wing related in every way, shape, or form, but it's just kind of been irking me ever since this weekend. My co-workers asked me what I did over the weekend. I said, I went to a board game convention. Oh, is that like Monopoly? Is that like Scrabble? Like what sort of board games? Well, I guess the best way I could describe it, and this might get a giggle, I said it's not so much a board game convention as it is a plumber's crack convention. My complaint is they make long T-shirts. They make these things because I've seen them on TV. I've seen the cartoon of the handyman with the fire hose pants and all this other stuff. Like they sell long tees, and we got a guy at our office that's just as bad. And honestly, I'm tired of walking around staring at the floor at these conventions because people are necessarily bent over tables. I completely understand that, but please, you've got to fill a draft at some point, right? You know, so this kind of, it goes into my bigger problem with conventions, and it's that it feels like so many people go to these things and just throw like their kind of humanity out the window as they go in. You know, they don't bathe, they don't eat. I know I'm painting with a broad brush right now, but quite frankly, I've had friends of mine, female friends, who I've said, I'd love to take you to said convention, but you're just going to come out of it with a really bad kind of opinion of all these people. And I know these people are good people because you sit at a table and you have a great time talking to them. You have a great time playing the game. Please, take at least an hour to walk away from the tables to freshen up, as it were. And when I went to a convention earlier this year, not a gaming convention, it was actually BronyCon, they had a panel they do every year where they kind of explain these things to people. And I wish I could remember the exact number, but it was along the lines of, it was like the 1-2-6 rule or something. You guys might be relatively familiar with this, which was essentially 6 hours of sleep, 2 meals, and 1 shower a day is kind of what they suggest.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they suggest to people. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm some, fresh as a flower person, but I go take the shower. And a lot of times I'll go take a second one after wandering around because there's a lot of people. There's, it tends to be hot in the crowded rooms and stuff like that. So I can completely understand, but just don't forget about it. That's my thing. So I'm sitting at these tables and I was having a blast, but at the same time, I couldn't help that guy. I mean, apparently he had Mexican for dinner and lunch. And he might have got it reheated for breakfast. And I told a buddy, like, the convention started at 3:00 on a Friday, right? It started at 3:00 on a Friday. Early registration for GMs, which is what I was doing, was like 2:30. So get there at 2:30, sign in, get my badge, and I walked around the corner. There's nobody there except for GMs, so there's maybe 50 people tops. And it already smelled like it was halftime at the local football game coming out of the bathroom. I'm like, are you serious? Serious? We've been here for half an hour, 15 minutes, and it's already it smells like a row of construction, dumpsters or construction, porta johns. Come on, people, please. Like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't know.
I remember Saturday morning.
You were
I
there.
went to the bathroom and I was like, oh, I better go to the bathroom now before it gets too bad. And I smelled it before I even hit the door. I mean, it was terrible. And there were vendors, like little booths in the hallway all over the place. And there was an unfortunate person who was giving massages, and they were like 20 feet from the men's room. And the stench from the men's room is so bad. Like you've got to relax and sit there in their little massage chair, which I'm sure feels great, but you've got to smell that stench while you're getting a massage.
Well,
it was terrible.
The thing for me is I'm not a tournament goer anymore. I only did a few tournaments in my time for X-Wing. But I know, like when I play personally, I get stressed out, whether you believe that or not. But I get a little stressed out. So I know, like, I'm not going to come out of there fresh as a daisy, right? But you know what? Like, if you're going to play for 12 or 14 hours, take a few minutes to go outside and get some fresh air and maybe even bring a change of clothes. I mean, I hate to be that way, but maybe just think about it, because those little things make our gaming industry, make us as gamers not seem so kind of standoffish or stand away from ish, if that makes sense. Because I tried to take a lady friend to one of the stores once, like just a standard gaming store, and she would not stay in more than 2 minutes. Not because of the stuff she thought was cool, but it's like that commercial for Febreze where you stop being able to smell it once you're in there for like 10 minutes. But anybody that's brand new walking in there is like, oh, I got to get out. It smells like wet dog, that sort of thing. So my suggestion, my plea to people is just think of other people when you're there. You might not believe it, but I think anyone who's fresh to this sort of, well, pardon the pun, fresh to this stuff does feel it. So that's kind of my small complaint. I have a big complaint about stuff in general that does kind of pertain to X-Wing. I know I'm just going to shoehorn this in there because I feel like it. The one thing that I think was funny, Jim can speak to this, is the great thing about X-Wing is, in general, it only takes like 5 minutes to set a game up, right? And I know I've complained about storage and stuff before, but we played a Black Powder era Civil War game, and right next to us was a World War II era game. I do not recall what that one was, Battlefront or something.
Battleground.
Something. Battle group, maybe Battle something.
Battle
Cry. Nope, it was Battle Group.
Oh, okay.
Fun game.
And I'm going to tell you, the one thing I miss about non-X-Wing games is how beautiful the scenery is. I mean, it's amazing. Like, if you take the time, obviously, you're not playing on stacks of textbooks and that sort of stuff, but it was gorgeous. But it took them an hour and a half, 2 hours to set this up. They had like a luggage cart from the hotel dragging stuff down there, and it looked gorgeous.
Okay.
And then they walked away from it. They didn't finish the game.
They wanted to play people from out of town. They all came from Charleston, South Carolina, and they came to play other people, but no one else quite signed up because we were playing at the table next door. We were playing the Civil War game, and those guys drank heavily. And they played like one game took, I think, like 10 hours.
I don't think they finished that game, at least while
I don't think they did. And they had like one guy pass out in the corner for a while, and they were gone more than they were there, and that's a whole other story. But
the thing I love about X-Wing is, in general, how fast it sets up. 6 asteroids. I know we don't really do that quite so much, but even the Mario Kart game we did tonight, and we can kind of segue into this. The Mario Kart game we did tonight that we stole from the Facebook page. Please join, because we got lots of great silliness that goes on there. That took us less time to set up than the game that Robert ran, the Civil War game, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see. And yes, ours was just masking tape on a thing, but like the thing I love about X-Wing is how fast it is. And Takedown is pretty much just the same. I do miss all of that. I do miss all that cool setup and all that stuff. But when you see someone at a convention spend an hour and a half of their life setting up the table, knowing that they're either going to spend almost as much time taking it down, or they're just going to roll it up and dump it into a plastic container, which I wasn't there for. And I feel bad at the same, just saying, hey man, it was a great game, and walk it away while he does it. But at being the GM at the convention, I know how that feels, because it's like, hey guys, thanks for playing. I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes cleaning everything up from this board game that's really cool, but takes forever to set up. So it is a minor gripe that you see a lot of people show up at these conventions. They spend a lot of time putting stuff up and then don't really use it. And it's kind of a great kind of nod to X-Wing for how fast it sets up, takes down, that sort of thing.
I will say that a lot of our listeners have started Here's the Turret Cluster, How'd I See? And if you've got that one guy who's enthusiastic, who printed it all out, who's got all the stuff himself, can I please suggest you help that poor sucker cleanup. If you're using his minis, his tokens, his everything, help him
Oh,
clean up.
absolutely. If he's
Help
the
him
TIE
clean up.
fighter guy, if he's the guy bringing a dozen TIE fighters and everything
Yeah.
else there, I know we've gone into Heroes of the Atari cluster, but just a general kind of rule I think that we've kind of done is one person provides all of the all of the empire, because it's easier than saying I think that's my tie and your tie and
My
and
tie.
everybody gets ties. So yeah, that is true. I try my best to help with that. But I'm also pretty lazy, so I don't always help. I tend to just pile stuff up, and then after Jim's put his cases away, I find another thing I forgot to give him, so he has to drag the cases back out.
Yes, it's like that one last damn
So it's like,
thing.
oh,
It's
I
like,
forgot about this ship
oh.
tile for your ship. Oh, God, that goes in a special case. So this is Jim's fault, honestly, for being a bad storage person. So he's got another case. He's got to put this in inside of a Ziploc bag, inside of a bigger box. I mean, so
Oh,
that's
you're
his
welcome.
own.
Welcome
That's
for all the stuff I provide.
Hey, I just show up. I should start treating this like a demo game at a convention where I just show up, play, and walk away. Like, that was great. Woo, I'm gone. But yeah, so a little bit of that, I guess, is if you're at a convention, please try to be at least a little respectful of your fellow convention goers in really every way, shape, or form. Help them set up, help them clean if you're so inclined, and maybe you should help yourself clean a little bit too. Just
Deodorant, gift bags.
yeah, I mean, even if I'm not a Axe spray dude, but hell, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'd rather smell that than some of the stuff that was at that convention this weekend. So I can't imagine what Gencon is. I haven't been in 15 years, so I probably have forgotten how traumatic it could be. I do remember the last day of Gencon it looking like Jonestown the day after, because there were so many people just lying on benches and on the floor because either they didn't have hotel rooms or they just passed out where they were. Wish I'd take a picture, but I didn't have a camera phone back then.
Hey Jim, I got that special delivery you wanted. As it turns out, I have a whole crate of spares in the car room.
So Jake, hopefully he's distracted enough right now to.
Roger that. Target acquired.
Yes, good. Restraining bolt back on. Excellent. All right, how you feeling, J-Bot?
He says the restraining bolt has short-circuited his recording system.
Doing pretty good. I got to play a fun game tonight.
All right, yeah. Well,
even though I got blown up probably more than anybody on the table for
I think actually you did. But before we get into that, you did touch on some things recently with the conversation about T-shirts and extra long T-shirts and such. Well, the Shuttle Tydirium has actually started its podcast T-shirt program. So we're actually selling T-shirts through a particular website, a vendor, where if we get enough T-shirts, they'll actually manufacture and sell off and ship these T-shirts. We have one in the U.S. and we have one in the U.K. for, and I think it said it was in the European Union, but I think it's actually based in London, and I'm not quite sure when you guys break off or not.
Well,
but
yes, for now it's in the EU.
For now. So we actually have two programs. We've got two links for the U.S. and for the European Union. That's all they have. Sorry, Australia. I know you guys get the shaft all the time. I do feel you. And anyone in Asia as well, or South America. But we're trying to charge like just enough to make it reasonable and get past costs. These T-shirts they're going to pay for software, recording software to improve our sound, and microphones for us. I know J-Bot's mic has kind of been falling apart lately.
Yeah, duct tape and super glue, baby. That's how we roll.
So $20. We don't want to make it too expensive, and any profits we will go towards
podcast related expenses.
Yeah, podcast related expenses. So if you like the show, buy a T-shirt. If you think, wow, these guys' sound quality sucks, why don't they have better sound quality? Buy a T-shirt. And if you want both of those things, and you like us and wish we sounded better, buy two.
Or if you just want a cool T-shirt, it's I think Jake actually made the image that's going on the T-shirt himself. So this is a original, as it were, design.
Authentic, priceless design.
Yep. Cool. It's the podcast logo that goes in you should be seeing when you play the podcast in an app.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hope that this works, because honestly I need to do headset, and I think we've said that already. But I would really love to see some crazier T-shirts too. I always have fun with lots of silly T-shirts when I go to the gym or just out and about town. I don't like just your standard. Ooh, look, I've got a Nike shirt on. I like them to say funny things or I mean, I've got a bandolier of carrots shirt, so it looks like I've got a bandolier that runs across the front with carrots in it. So I mean, that's type of silliness that I'll wear. So I'm kind of hoping this first one is successful enough that maybe we'll spawn some other fun ones too.
Yeah, and if you don't want to buy anything, you don't want to spend your money, and you want to listen to the show for free, that's okay too. You can just do that.
Yeah, you don't have to feel bad
about that. Yeah, we're not going to be like,
what? They should feel bad. No, you should feel bad. I don't understand what you're talking about. We're giving you this for free.
Jake, are you sure that restraining
I'm
bolt
losing
is
sleep
secure
right now. I'm losing sleep right now to give you
I thought it was secure.
Entertainment. Well, relative. Well, okay, so stuff. I'm giving you sound. I don't know that it's quality or entertaining, but I'm giving you stuff instead of sleep. Dance for me. Dance for me,
Dance,
J-Boss.
monkey dance.
So,
Also, we talked about conventions, and we are solidifying, and it's looking better and better to actually have our Shuttle Tydirium official Gencon event. It looks like it's going to be happening. We're working with Biff, the local guy, and we're going to be running a story-driven one-day event, 3 or 4 missions. Only one unique for every unique. So if Sunterfell's there or whatnot, and he dies in the first mission, he's gone. He's out of it. And that's it. Only one person.
There's going to be like only one Sunterfell per team.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a little crazy. At least with what we're working with right now.
Oh yeah.
One R2D2.
It might change.
If he blows up, that's it. So
yeah.
We
should be seeing some pretty crazy lists as a result of that restriction.
Absolutely. I think it'll be a nice kind of casual yet competitive environment is the hope.
Yeah.
So they do a big tournament there. Fantasy Flight does as well, don't they? They do a big tournament of some form, shape, or the other that I've maybe heard something about.
Yeah, so we're planning to have our events the day after the main tournament.
Well,
so we get all the people that lose. Excellent.
Yeah, there's basically 2 days, and then there's a big cut, and those who get cut, they're going to keep like 64 out of 200 something. So those we're going to have 40 players. 40 players is what we're aiming for, and people can sign up in advance. And I'm sure if there's going to be empty slots, you can completely sign up after you get kicked out of the other tournament.
Right. I mean, we'll have more details on this later, but you'll probably also want to, if you're thinking about dropping into the campaign at the narrative event, which we're trying to do at Gencon, if you're planning on maybe doing that, then it's probably a good idea to bring more than just your tournament list. We'll get into that later.
And so I've never been to Gen Con, and if you're from like, I don't know, Europe, it's probably the equivalent of me driving from London to Greece. So it's cheaper to fly.
It's basically like driving from your country to like 3 of them away, but at least
5
for us.
Away. Yeah, so it's really far, and I've never been, and I really want to, and I really think I could pull it off this year. So I'm excited. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, and I used to.
I think we could get you like a handicap thing so we can get in early and like check out all the booths and stuff.
I don't know. I think by next summer that I'll be fully healed.
No. You won't be completely healed. Just remember, tell your doctor, just 1 more month. That's all I need.
I have handicap parking until March, and then it's gone.
Heckgummit. You just
all right.
Come through for us, Jim. You got to come through for us. All I'm asking. Think about it. We might be able to get in early. We might be able to get elevator access, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, okay. This is probably a bit. We're rambling a bit, and I do want to talk more about the event when we get more solidified. I think it'd be quite fun to do. We'd like to incorporate it in the podcast, and even I think once we're done with it, we could actually share the information to everyone if they want to then host a very similar event in their local area, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely, yeah. We could definitely disseminate all the mission packet and all the necessary rules to run the event. I will probably run a test run in my local area before Gencon, just to test everything out.
Yeah. And I have to say that Phil is fantastic with his missions and scenarios, which is why I actually invited him as my co-pilot to the podcast, because his stuff was always so much better than mine on mission control. I was always so bitter. So
yeah,
he's really good.
Yeah, I'll be adapting some of my I'll be adapting some missions that I already have for use in the campaign, in the narrative, and I'll be writing about half of them will be brand new for the narrative event. So it should be a good spread. I think I'm writing 8 missions total for this. Yeah, because each round we're gonna have like more than one mission option, so not everyone is playing the same thing. It's gonna be pretty cool. It's a very exciting event that's being planned here, and I think we'll very likely have pretty good prize support too. It sounds like we're gonna get some pretty cool like terrain stuff maybe. I don't want to jinx it, but it looks pretty good.
And there's some other stuff too, templates at least, and this travel kit, which is I need to know more about it. But there's a company that I actually got my movement templates through. They're from Germany, and they're actually doing a travel kit, which is gonna be very exciting. But I need to know more about it. But it's gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited.
So, are you doing like write-ups and stuff for the narrative event too, like stories and stuff?
Yeah,
are we going to have to do this live?
We will have you read things, even if you can't make it. We're going to have to record you so we can play it at the end.
That's what I was wondering. Like, hold on a second, let me call J-Bot again. Let's get the next narration down. I wasn't sure if I was going to have to do this live in front of a studio audience or something while before the next event.
We'll record you.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a narrative component to this.
Awesome. I think it'll be fun. Sounds fun. I will be pleasantly surprised, I'm sure, since I won't know anything about it. It'll just show up.
Yeah. It's we should clue you in. You're kind of out of the loop on this one.
No, like I said, I don't mind just showing up and being like, yay, here's J-Bot. I'm going to pick this team. So you guys on the other team, y'all are going to have one leg up.
All right. We could probably go into more of that detail later, and I don't want to spend too much time not talking about anything. So let's go ahead and go forward. I do want to talk about a segment that started due to a Facebook post today. Actually, I see it's 23 hours ago by Ryan Fiedler. I know I'm going to get the name wrong. Fiedler? But super great guy. His Facebook page doesn't say where he's from, but he posted to our Shuttle Tydirium podcast page, and we have a lot of people who post various odd things, and it's pretty good interactive. And I have to admit, I really enjoy the Facebook page and just kind of hearing about other people playing their odd version of X-wing. So it's pretty cool. But he found a Reddit thread that was about Mario Kart X-wing. And so the Reddit thread was from AYBB8 on Reddit. That's the handle. No idea who the person is, but thank you very much. And they came up with a thread and how to do this game. And Ryan kind of took it and tested it himself, and he posted pictures to the Facebook page. And there's a whole what is it? Imgur, I
think.
Imgur with actual cards that were made, some sort of Magic the Gathering card creator, but where someone made Mario Kart upgrades for X-wing. So it was posted, and J-Bot saw it early on. What do you think, J-Bot?
I grew up loving Mario Kart, and so as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, there's a game that should be super simple, because it was 24 points, I think, was your max per ship.
But yeah, we'll get into the
with very limited restrictions, so like anybody could show up and be like, I've got a ship, like just like that, without much thought. And then second was it was a very simple concept. It's just race. It's get around the board, pick up these little crazy Mario Kart style upgrades, and you didn't die. I mean, you died, but you respawned. So someone wouldn't essentially be kicked out of the race on the first turn because I don't want to get into I don't want to go through turn by turn in this whole thing, but I'll put it this way: 5 ships were destroyed in the first 3 turns of the game before we made the first quote unquote turn in the game. Like, we were like, all right, the first one's a left-hand hairpin, and boom, 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 there go 5 ships. So, okay. So it was a lot of fun.
We can kind of go into it but J-Bot was like, boom, Jim, you need to get this done. You need to do it for tonight because it happened this morning. And so I happened to use some office supplies and printers and printed things off at work and then glued things to manila folders and cut it out to actually make all the cards. But basically, it's a really cool system. The pictures posted put things on a 3x3 mat, but we used a 4x4 because our game store actually created 4x4 mats or kind of tabletoppers, and he used painter tape, blue and green painter tape to kind
that size. Just for pointers, definitely changed the dynamic of the game. If you look at the Facebook page, and hopefully Jim will post a bunch of the pictures from ours, the space on ours because of the extra foot in both directions provided a lot more kind of maneuverability. Maneuvering room versus the one that was originally posted. So playing it on a 3x3 looks really, really interesting. For how tight the confines are on the thing.
But I interrogated Ryan with a bunch of questions, and he was at a break and actually responded to like all my questions, which was really good. And I greatly appreciate Ryan. Thank you so much for answering my questions. And we had a lot of fun doing it tonight. Just to kind of go over some of the rules, basically, painter's tape kind of marks out if you cross the line in a way you're not supposed to, or kind of end up off the board, if you make it past the blue tape that we used for the walls, then basically you were destroyed. And when you're destroyed, whether you're shot up or blown up by people shooting at you or you go over, you go to the last checkpoint that you crossed, whether it's the starting point or various other checkpoints that you can kind of hit on the board. And once you pass that, boom, you're safe. If you blow up, you just kind of go back to that checkpoint. So so that was kind of cool and made things interesting. And then if you bump someone, you each roll a red die to see if you're just, take the damage die, hit or crit. That's what you suffer. So you really don't want to be bumping anyone. I mean, unless you're trying to kill someone or they're really low on health and you are. And the idea was the Reddit thread said, hey, start with 50 points, any ship, large ship, whatever you can play. But Ryan had field tested it with a whole bunch of different point levels, and the points that they came up with was 24 points was their favorite. At 24 points, no large base ships, no lone wolf, and no Dead Man Switch, which, first off, the thing of Dead Man Switch is going to be hysterical. I'm sure there's a story there, which is funny.
Yeah, there has to be a reason for that specific card.
Yeah. But at 24, there's say no phantoms involved, which is good. The only T70 is the very basic PS2 T70 you can go with. You can go with a K-wing, but you can't do any upgrades or
you get one spare point if you get the cheapest K-wing.
Right, and that's not enough for advanced slam. And it's pretty interesting. I like 24 points. I think it's pretty cool. And so basically, there's a few other things. Everybody gets to put out 2 obstacles. So we threw out some proximity mines. We threw out asteroids, debris fields. We even pulled out because Ryan had done it, one of the ion clouds from Here's the Turi Cluster. So we threw those out, and basically, and there's also 2 turrets that start out on the board, and they shoot at everybody actually that they can in that round. They shoot first, and he said he tried it with 3 red dice, but they didn't hit as much people. So we used 4 red dice. And that was really brutal.
Yeah,
really brutal.
But it's unmodifiable. But it also used the range brackets. So if you're at range 1, you're getting 5 dice, and a lot of the stuff was at range 1 when you passed one of these things. So it was the turrets ate up a lot of ships in this game. It got Jim and I on the last turn.
Both of
us. I almost made it through. It killed Jim, I think, twice going through the first one. It definitely. Yeah, I was able to skirt through, and it kept blanking on me the first few times through. So, I do think one of the great things about this is we copied as close as we could the track that was posted in Facebook. But I feel like this is, in a sense, infinitely, kind of changeable.
You can make your own tracks.
Make your own tracks. They could be
Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah. Very
Exactly.
simple to super complex. Yeah. And I actually joked, I think, on the Facebook page or something like that it's something I could easily see turning into a league of these races. Just the only problem is time, because ours took a long time. We had 6 players to start, so that might be part of it.
Yeah, I do think that actually was a part of it, and I had some other thoughts. But before we even go too far, there's also the idea of the mystery boxes, the prize boxes. So you run over the box and you get an upgrade.
Right.
But these upgrades were not like, a cannon or a torpedo or whatnot. They were actually complete Mario Kart upgrades that someone had created, and they were hysterical. So,
total game rule breaking, but still hysterical.
Right, like a mushroom, which you use as an action boost. You may use a 1 or 2 movement template, any 1 or 2 movement template, and do that instead of an action, like
including
boom,
the shark and stuff.
Turn, boom, or another one. There was golden mushroom. You can use any movement template. So boom, 5 straight. Anything.
Yep. There were some great ones. I think the one that eventually sold me was, I don't remember, but I want to say it was like a ghost or something that forced everybody on the table, including yourself, to you played it right at activation to make everybody just spin their dial so they couldn't see it. And
it was the squid.
Is that what it was?
It was the squid that normally shoots ink,
that
everybody
was so,
in front of you.
It was so hilarious because pretty much everybody got screwed by that.
Yeah.
The guy in the lead got put through the proximity mine, which killed him. I got turned around and ran basically square into a wall and blown up.
I had to S loop.
Yeah, he had to S loop. So he was going backwards on the track. It was completely random. So you're just sitting there spinning the dial. And so that one was, when I read that today, reading through the post, I said, all right, that's it. You got me. I only wish there were more of those in the deck, because I love that. Just kind of completely, you're almost afraid to see what you got on your dial.
Yeah.
There's a ton of, there's bananas, which drop basically Connor nets, which they don't do damage or remove your action, but they give you ion tokens. So you hit the banana, you're stunned. There's the different shells. So green shell, you put like a 5 straight template. The first person hit by the template gets hit for 2 damage. There's another one, the red shell. You get to pick the closest ship in your firing arc. It's dealt 2 damage. They can't dodge it. Boom. And then there's even the blue shell, which says the person closest to the finish line takes 2 ion tokens. It says, why do you say 2 ion tokens? Because it was designed, at least initially, for 50 points. So you have large ships. So in ion tokens and a critical hit card, like just bam. And there's even the fake item box, which you take it, you take 1 damage. But there was just all these little cards you can do, and they refreshed every turn. So, and you had to swap your cards out when you landed on new ones. You couldn't hoard, a really good card. But basically, we played this with 6 people. It took us 3 hours to do 1 lap because we blasted the living heck out of each other.
Yeah, it was very much for the first, I want to say half of the race was probably the first 2.5 hours that we were just like, oh, there's somebody in my front arc at range 1. I'm just going to gun them down. And so there was a lot of restarting at the previous checkpoint going on until somebody broke away from the pack, and then everybody's like, all right, no shooting. I'm not shooting at anybody. We're all going to race as hard as we can and try not to kill ourselves, basically.
Yeah. It was pretty difficult. And with 24 points, you've actually got a lot of really interesting options. Like, what was the one you went with, J-Bot?
Oh, I do not remember her name, but it was a pilot skill 7 Scum Hawk, the one that basically gives you the
wait, not Hawk.
No, I'm sorry, not Hawk. I'm sorry, the Headhunter.
Yeah,
the Z95 Headhunter that gives you the
Nadru
like Nadar or Nadru, something like that.
Nadru.
Yeah, she basically gives you 1 extra attack die at range. If there's no friendly ship in range 1 to 2, which obviously there's no friendly ships. And I had an engine upgrade, which I kicked around the idea of the engine upgrade. It actually helped me a ton. But everybody picked on me. It's like, if anybody had a shot at me, they shot at me for some reason. Like,
well, because you started off slow rolling.
Well, yeah, I was a pilot skill 7. I had to be in the back. So, I mean, I could have been out front, but I had the slowest ship on the table. So it's like, there's no reason for me to be out front and getting gunned down by the A-wing and the X-wings and stuff like that. So the whole plan for me was like, all right, I'm going to let these guys get in front a little bit, and then I'll take one out and zoom. But when I was on my own, I actually did pretty good. I was flying around the table pretty quick. And that's the fun thing, is that even though like you go back to a checkpoint, the checkpoints, at least the ones we use, were close enough that with nobody to harass you or get in your way, you could catch up in a turn or two at most. But I got passed out. The Headhunter's so weak.
We might want to actually add more checkpoints, I think. I don't know. We'll have to talk about it.
I want to add, if we kept the same map and we left it on the table, like, so we just left the tape on the boards. If we use the same map, this is me. I know we don't really need to go all this crazy detail. I'd put a third turret up in that final turn.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
because it's smooth sailing. If you make that basically make it past that kind of second turret, there's nothing to stop you at all, and that's like a quarter of the racetrack. There's nothing on, so that's something that I would choose. And you have a choice, at least on ours. You had a choice of like, take the long way and you get the checkpoint, or skip it and you don't get that checkpoint. So you had to go like basically halfway back on the track. But really, once you clear past that turret, which you can plan if you stage it right, you can kind of, just kind of stutter move and burn past it. Even with my Headhunter, you could do it. So to me, it wasn't as dangerous as you have to slow down in this sharp turn, which is what happened with the first turret. It was almost a U-turn or almost a hairpin. So everybody was getting eat up by that first turret just because you had to turn right. And
I was the first person to get to it, and I went right to the edge of the firing arc. I was ready to clear past it, like zip past it and totally avoid it. And what does J-Bot pull? But the lightning card. Everybody gets the ion token.
Except for me. So I actually caught up. I caught up really fast, but it drifted him square into the gun.
And I got lit up. Range 1, I was stressed. I had
range 1 stress, 5 dice. And you actually ate it the second turn too, I think, when you most made it out the second turn.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I went with, I thought about it, and I went with Omega Squadron Pilot, which is a TIE First Order TIE fighter with push the limit and comm relay, so I could take the evade and keep it. And my idea was, I'm fast, I'm maneuverable, I get all sorts of stuff, and I'll just be able to, with push the limit, live to get past the pact, and then be able to make it through because I'm fast. And the first turn, everybody else went like 2s and 3s, and I went 5, and I was in front of everybody, and everybody shot at me.
And everybody's like 2, going 2. And just gunned him down, just ate him alive. I got one-shotted on the first turn, or was it first turn or second turn? Second turn, I got one-shotted. So my little 2-shield, 2-hole Headhunter, got ate alive. I got one-shotted at least 2 or 3 times in that game.
But like another list I was thinking of was Mauler Mythal, the TIE fighter, who gets an extra attack die at range 1. Give him push limit and engine upgrade. So he's got boost, barrel roll. He's at PS7, and with push the limit, and if I get within range 1 of somebody, I get 4 attack die. That was a good option right there to do, because I really like the idea of barrel roll and boost. I think boost overall is powerful, but
yeah, but the 24-point kind of restriction I think was very well done. It leaves open a huge window of choices, whether you want to go with kind of a low point cost ship and throw a bunch of upgrades on it, or a K-wing, K-wing at 23 points and find 1 point to spend on something else. And the K-wing gives you a ton of shield and hull, a built-in turret, and the ability to slam. So you've got this really fast kind of tanky ship with no agility. So everybody knows that if you get out in front and you're still in range, you're going to get lit up. But no one ran one. It was kind of my first idea, but decided against it. No one ended up running one. Now I really want to.
But so if you're going with a K-wing and you're going with a low pilot skill, you're actually probably going to be in the back of the pack, and you can't bump to get your slam. But then if you get out front, because we were talking about it, someone's like, oh, a K-wing will automatically win, and if you get out front, people are going to light you up. If you get out in front of people and they say, look, that K-wing, if it gets out there, it's going to get past us. But this is our one or two
turns of clear sailing and it's gone.
Yeah. So you got to light it up. So it's got 1 agility, and oh man, you can just smoke one if you try.
And that's where I think that compressed field on the 3x3 kind of prevents it from doing it, because looking at the pictures, the lanes looked like it was about 3 bases wide. They didn't look like ours where you could fit 4 or 5 ships wide on them. And that gives that K-wing kind of plenty of room to kind of swing around the corners, versus because it doesn't have that really tight maneuverability, but it can get a good long ways. But I think by compressing the field, making the corner sharper, that sort of thing, it would keep the K-wing kind of in check, at least for its speed.
Right, and a lot of people said, "Oh, an A-wing will obviously win because it's so fast, got the dial, blah blah blah." But we had our local guy Blake. He did the A-wing, and he got blasted like twice. I think he was the first person to die twice, because there's only so much shield and hull. You don't have that many tokens, and you can get killed pretty easy. And some of the cars, like, I use a shell on you, bam, 2 hits, you can't avoid it. I don't care how many green dice you have. But just thinking about it, TIE interceptors would probably be really good because they've got 3 attack, 3 evade. They can boost and barrel roll.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at some of the unused ones. Lieutenant Laurier, if you barrel roll, you can use the
2 template, right?
It's the
bank. It's a bank.
It's the 1 bank. So you can use the bank one to kind of do like a funky barrel roll, which I think on the racetrack would be awesome. Except you get a stress when you do it. But
yeah. It could be useful in the track if you have because the interceptor I think has a 4 straight green.
Yep, it does.
So you're not going to get slowed down too much if you can take a straight move the next turn.
So you're at a corner, and normally just a barrel roll wouldn't do much, but a barrel roll that was one of those curved one, boom, you'd be halfway around the corner already. That would be pretty cool. And there is the First Order TIE fighter pilot that has the 2 barrel roll, which is pretty cool. So this is a chance for like these guys with all the weird stuff to kind of really do neat stuff. There's so many things you can do, so many different things, and we had a great time with it. Everyone's like dun 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 dun, dun singing the Mario song, and I think we had 6 players. People died fast, and I think we learned that if we play again, not to be so trigger happy.
Yeah, I think early on, obviously, but the thing I found most interesting about it, and obviously we've kind of waxed on about this for a while, is we had more visitors to the table, the Mario Kart table, than we've had in ages. The it's on board game night, so a lot of the board gamers are just used to seeing us, doing the standard kind of, 100 on 100. Maybe Jim and I doing a campaign or a weird mission or something like that. They're not used to seeing, 6 or 7 people huddled around one table, and everybody walked up. It's like, oh my God, is this Mario Kart? Like with X-wing, pretty much everybody immediately got it. And I think that's a great kind of way of drawing people in. It's kind of like hot AC in a way, where it just kind of sucks people's attention into it. Like, what are all you people doing around the same table? Instead of just one-on-one across from each other. Why are there these people surrounding the table? Why is everybody having fun versus one person looking like, they just got their dog kicked versus the other person celebrating and gloating? Like, because you die and respawn, you don't feel quite as bad as I do typically when all of my ships are getting blown out from under me. So
right.
I had a blast. It seemed like everybody else that played had a blast. There's a lot of kind of what's the word, diplomacy going on. Like, I won't shoot you if you shoot that guy. We can focus on him.
Or even please
sort of
shoot me so I can respawn.
Right? Yeah. Jim's like, please shoot me. I've got one hole left. There's no way I'll make it past that gun. Please shoot me so that I can respawn.
Someone else people said that, but I think I said it once. But
and of course I missed.
Yeah, we just had our regionals here this past weekend, so I think for us, people are more willing to try all the crazy versions because if they're just kind of finishing, they're burnt out on tournament play. This can be it. So if you're looking to build your local scene and you're trying to find ways to entice people, this was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah, excellent. So I really want to try that again sometime. It was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and by the way, we had the last turn, a T-70 crossed the line, a low pilot skill T-70, and then we had a Mandalorian fighter that was PS3, go straight and boost across the line. So we were curious, and Ryan, you could probably get back to us, who would win there, and you guys should probably let us know on the Facebook page or in the Shuttle Tydirium, because when you go who goes first, lowest pilot skill crossed the line. So technically they went, but the highest pilot skill player also crossed the line. And this is one time, if you did it completely rules written, the lower pilot skill would technically go first, but really it would be better to have the higher pilot skill person win because,
Yeah, I'm on the side of the higher pilot skill because at least the way I've always understood higher pilot skill being last gives them the opportunity to outmaneuver and adjust, to what the low pilot skill newbies are doing. So to me, in this instance, it feels like, well, the guy hasn't even had a chance to go yet versus, theoretically it would be the same.
Probably measure the distance from the finish line and give the win to whoever is further away. If possible, and then break ties with pilot skill.
Right, there is that thought. I thought about that at the time because the only issue was basically the pilot skill 2 guy just decided, hey, I'm just going to slide across the line real fancy. So he took like a bank or something, and the other guy like blistered across it with a straight.
No, it's not that he tried to be fancy. He couldn't go straight because he was at a weird angle.
He was at a bit of a weird angle
because he cut the corner and went through the asteroid. And the Mandalorian Fang fighter could have gone straight and just lit him up at range 1, but he went, cleared his stress, went around and boosted around the rock. So I don't know, and he had a better angle to approach the finish line. So I don't know.
For me, if I had to choose one or the other, I would go with high pilot skill, just in general in that one.
Yeah.
Just because for me, like that was the whole point, is that the only reason the low pilot skill got to go first was because of the just the rules based on maneuverability. It almost should be, maybe this is a crazy another rule, pilot skill, like you get to choose when you go based on your pilot skill. So, you're a 7. Do you want to go first or do you want to go last in the turn?
I think that adds so much complication. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like, you're a 7. Do you want to go first this turn, or you're the highest pilot skill? Do you want to go first or last? Because, hey, maybe you want to plan your move not to get stuck behind all of these newbies that are in their little pilot skill 1 go-karts getting in your way. And essentially you're at a huge disadvantage as a high pilot skill, because you're going after all these other guys who've kind of clogged up the racetrack. So.
Yeah, there is that whole method. I do agree with that. And I've thought about actually switching it so higher pilot skill goes first. That might be actually something worth switching. Like you move and shoot first.
Yeah, it would certainly change the game on its head a little bit, but it would sort of make sense for these sorts of things for a race. But in general, it was a ton of fun, even played with just the general straight rules.
And one guy, he took a First Order Special Forces TIE fighter, so he actually got to shoot out, both arcs if he wanted. And in the race, that was actually pretty important. You could have a guy in front and in back. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you can fire the tortoise shell things from either side.
Yeah. So so little things like why, like someone in Ryan's game, he had one of his buddies took Cavill, the scum Y-wing pilot that gets bonus attack dice shooting out of arc, and you'd give him that. I can't remember his points, but you give him a turret or even like an ion turret.
Yeah, or an auto blaster turret or something.
Yeah, and I always think ion because it's pretty vicious. Well, Cavill's 24 points on his own, so he couldn't get any upgrades.
I thought hard about a BTL Y-wing with an ion cannon. Trust me, it was there in my anything that gets in front of me is basically going to stop. So I have a slow ship that can go past them. But just it's a great concept. That's why I jumped all over it when I saw it this morning, and I really want to try it again. That tells me, based on everybody there really had a great time, tells me it's a great concept, that people can dive into. They just get it. You just understand it. And you can, it's almost infinitely expandable just in the way you can do the maps and stuff. So
yeah, different racetracks, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, excellent. Cool. So, all right. So Phil, what have you been up to lately?
So I've been doing a lot of work putting together the missions for the narrative event that we're going to do at Gencon, and thinking about narrative events and campaigns in general. We've been playing through the Corvette campaign, and in addition to that, I always have a campaign project that I have on the back burner, and that I'm constantly putting in work on and trying to get it to the level where it's ready to get like a real public release. But that's probably a ways off. But I did want to talk about campaigns and narrative events in general, because it's something that comes up from time to time on the forums. I think right now there's even a couple of threads up where people are either playing through their own campaigns, or they're asking about they're asking for advice about how to run an X-wing campaign. So I just want to talk, just generally about my thoughts on campaigns, since I've been working on mine for a long time, and I think I have a pretty good handle on what makes what elements make a good X-wing campaign. So I think people are drawn to campaigns because, first of all, it's a different way to play the game, and it can be very thematic in its scope. So you get closer to the original feel of flying in the Star Wars universe if you're playing missions and you're fighting for some like a long-term battle or chain of events. You're sort of occupying a place in a story if you're playing in a campaign or a narrative event.
And the continuum, like the idea of if someone dies, then they're dead.
Right. Yeah. That's an element that a lot of campaigns incorporate, is some element of pilot mortality. And I think the most common way to introduce that is to say that if you have a named pilot, that if they get shot down and they die, then you can't take them in future missions. I think that's the most straightforward way to do it. I don't think it's exactly the best way for some reasons, but it's certainly the most common way that people bring in an element of pilot mortality into that campaign experience. Campaigns also offer you like a way to expand the game experience, so you can add additional elements to the X-wing game when you're doing a campaign. So like one way that you can sort of expand the game is by adding things like pilot progression. So there's like in Heroes of the Atari Cluster, there's a pilot progression system, right? You have experience points that you gain, and you can spend them on new upgrades and pilot abilities. And I think that good campaign systems, you should have some form of that, since it gets you more attached to your pilots if you build them from the ground up. Right?
And I think everybody's had a game like where you've got that one plucky academy pilot that
right.
You like live, you've rolled 3 evades, 5 shots in a row, and
you say like, "Good job, I'm never gonna forget you," and then you put them in your box and you can never tell them apart from any of the ships, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's always fun to have that one somehow survived guy.
Right,
yeah, he's just like taking out like Darth Vader, and you know. Yeah, so in a campaign, it's possible to write into the DNA of that campaign ways to keep track of your generic pilots. So in my my campaign that I've been working on, every generic pilot that you buy, every pilot that you buy, period, starts off at like pilot skill 1, and they're all unique, but to the extent that they're unique, they just have like different names when you buy them, right? But they're all just essentially generic pilots. But once you start taking them on like 1 or 2 missions, then you start they start like getting more experience, and they start leveling up, and they have successes and failures in the battle. You start getting attached to them like pretty quickly. Like even I've done a lot of playtests with Jake actually, and other people that I play with here. And when I'm playing as the Imperials, whenever I'm building my squadron as an Imperial player, I always assign Imperial pilots like operating number names. So like the famous one is TK426 or whatever. TK426 and like the Death Star. That's like one of the operating numbers of the stormtroopers that they, I think, kill and take their uniforms. But anyway, so like all my pilots are named like OG471 or IT 000 or something, 0001 or something like that. It's all just letters and numbers. And even those guys start feeling like they have personality after like 2 games with them, because there'll be like a hot shot of the group who gets like 3 kills, and there'll be other guys, and there'll be guys who just get killed on the first mission, and you just replace them with another essentially faceless Imperial recruit. But it's a really different feeling when you actually name your pilots and keep track of them individually in a campaign, as opposed to the generic Academy pilot that you fly in a standard game, and you really don't care about in any way. But if you give your pilot a name and you keep track of what he's done, and if you start leveling him up, increasing his pilot skill, giving them abilities, upgrades, you actually get attached to the pilots, and you start looking at them differently. And because they can die, you start playing with them more conservatively, and you actually care if they die or not. And that's a really interesting element to a campaign that you can't really get in a standard game of X-wing, because you're only really worried about pilots dying, because then you'll lose that mission. But you always know that they're going to come back the next time. There's like you can't permanently lose a pilot unless you like lose the card or something. I don't know. Someone steals your card. So it's a feeling that you never get in a standard game of X-wing. It's really interesting. So pilot progression, pilot mortality. There's also in a campaign where you can buy new ships and replace ships. If you have an economic system in your campaign, then you can sort of adapt to what the other guy is doing. So let's say like I have a squadron of TIE fighters, and the other guy that I'm fighting has a squadron of I don't know, A-wings, and I want to actually, I'm having trouble keeping up with the A-wings maneuverability, and I'm not punching through their defensive dice with my TIE fighters. Then I could, if you have like an economic system where you can buy new and different ships as the campaign progresses, then maybe I could like start switching over to something different. Like maybe I could start buying interceptors instead of TIE fighters. And my opponent could then also adapt to that change. So there's, a back and forth that you can get. And
yeah,
it's also useful because you can adapt to your enemy. If he has a really strong ship or a combo, then you can build your own squadron to defeat that. And if you defeat it, it goes away permanently because pilots can be killed permanently. So there's like an internal like self-balancing element to that.
And that's really cool when you have like, you've got someone and your opponent's got a pilot that you just hate, and they've developed their strategy or whatnot, and it's really effective. And there could be missions where you lose, but you killed that dang pilot, bam, you blasted that guy, whether it's Suntirfell or whoever.
Or in your case, maybe, Whisper.
Yeah. It's like, and that thing's gone, and they cannot use that person ever again.
Right.
You might lose that mission, but you feel like you won. You're just like, yes, I have a chance now. Boom.
Exactly. So things like that start playing in campaigns. And I think that's it's a really cool and different way to play X-wing. It adds different layers,
And I do like the organic play when you play with someone, and it's like they happen to take like, the A-wings. You're like, all right, you got A-wings. All right, I'm taking homing missiles. I don't care about your evade token, or boom, and you've got that back and forth, and it kind of really ebbs, and you kind of end up in these weird places that you never probably would have gone if you just like pick the list, but you're like, you're playing oddly, but it's cool, but it works, It's like when we play these missions, Senator Shuttle, and how someone takes something, and then maybe the next time you play the same mission, you can be in the same scenarios, but you're picking something completely different, knowing that they're going to take that particular, if they're going to go with they're the Z95 swarm.
Yeah, it's it's a very personalized, small scale metagame.
Yeah, the meta changes because the meta for those who don't know. Meta is the game of the game. And so people say, I wish there was no meta. Well, you're going to have meta. There's always meta. Thinking about the game. There's always going to be that. But it's like, so what are the main – meta is basically saying, you know what the strong net lists are, and you've got to be able to play against it. So when you expect the lists people will take – that's kind of the meta that you're planning against. And it could be, hey, no one takes those lists and you're really screwed. Or the meta can be just wide open. But the meta is something you can't escape. But the meta is basically the game of the game. And it's like you and one other person, and you're going that back and forth. That meta is very personalized. And it's different than what you would just see online. But cool.
Yeah.
Unless someone's got something that you can't beat, then it sucks.
Right. If there's a huge skill difference, then it might not be as fun.
Or someone has progressed a certain particular pilot, and you just can't find a way to destroy it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's impossible to destroy a pilot, then that's one thing. I mean,
or you haven't found a way yet. That kind of
yeah. During one of the play tests that I ran for my campaign system, I think probably about a year ago, Jake and I were playing, and Jake probably remembers this.
Yep, probably.
He had a decimator pilot.
Oh God, I hate this story.
Got totally stacked with upgrades and really good abilities. At the time, we were using a system where I and a few other people had come up with our own pilot abilities from scratch, and you could get a whole lot of, you could stack a lot of abilities. And this decimator just had a ton. And Jake, I remember all. Do you remember exactly what it could do?
I mean, there was just so much goodness there. It was like,
I think it had like gunner, and
Yeah.
it had fire control system, I think.
it had where it could get a target lock on whatever it shot at. I think it also did more damage if you were something in its front arc or something like that.
It had, yeah.
It was like you
super
got to
neat.
roll extra die. It was great, and I had nursed that pilot for many games, if I remember correctly. Like I had nursed him
Right,
up
I
to
think you
full health.
played you brought that pilot every game.
Yeah, and just better,
leveled
better,
him up.
better. Yeah.
And to the point where he was just a terror.
I was doing well.
It was just absolutely. It was dominate. It was. I was playing. Jake was bringing this ship every time, and every time I essentially couldn't do anything about it, and I had to run away from it and ignore it, because if I took it head on, then I would just get destroyed, and I wasn't pushing enough damage through on it to kill it, et cetera, et cetera. But I eventually was able to level up a few TIE interceptors and other ships, and give them certain pilot abilities, and these were like crazy pilot abilities again that I had custom made. I still have this list somewhere, but I essentially custom built a squad to specifically kill this decimator.
Right.
And I just once all the pieces were in place, I brought them all out in a mission. And I did actually manage to take it down.
Yeah, you did.
As I remember, it actually, in the end, survived because in those rules, the ship was destroyed. But then at the end of the game, you get to make a roll to recover the pilot.
Actually,
so, like, did he?
My pilot died that one mission.
Oh,
did he
you
not?
nailed him
I
good.
thought he recovered.
No, man, he. May the Emperor, bless his soul. He ate it big time. That was a very sore moment for me. I blocked most of it out. I can't believe you remember this. Jeez, I blocked it all.
He's got it written down in like
you've got some good detail on this thing. I'm still crying about it.
Yeah, the fun thing about it sounds like that's more of a similar to Hot AC than it is, I guess, to a straight sort of narrative campaign. Is that what you guys were kind of leaning towards, or was this actually just a really, really long narrative campaign?
It was so that the campaign system that I've been working on is like an open-ended campaign system where you're not playing a specific narrative, so there's not like a specific storyline that you're playing along. So in that sense, yeah.
And I actually like that sort of thing. Hot AC is it always feels like it's just a long narrative campaign to me, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I grew up kind of, in a sense, cut my teeth on the miniature gaming world outside of 40K playing a game called Necromunda.
yeah.
Some of you guys might be familiar with, and also Blood Bowl, which have very similar dynamics. You essentially buy a team or buy a gang, and most of them start out as, Juve number 1 or, lineman number 1, and through the course of many, many games, they develop personalities. Oh, this is that guy that always, fumbles every time he gets the ball or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I can definitely speak from experience in those games, how kind of soul crushing it is to see that
to lose like your main guy. Yeah.
But what is great about those, and X-wing, I feel like it needs it, because Hot AC to me is more like a kind of a toe being dipped into the water of that world, and I do love it so much. What I love is that it builds its own story. I mean, we played one, and I won't go crazy in detail, but we played Necromunda for years. We actually ran it in the first kind of hobby store that they allowed us to do it. We ran it there, and I played because there was basically everybody had one gang, and everybody had to play a different gang. That was part of the rules. So I got the female gang, and I was like, I am man enough. I will play the females. And they became the Widowmakers. I only had 5 people on the team because they all kept getting killed. If I got the 6th person, it was like a curse. I got to pick up a new Juve. I can't get no dead. They would die almost every game. So I had a 5-person Widowmaker team that after 2 years, everybody was scared to death of, because they were the only ones that ever survived these missions. And if you ran into them like, oh, I can carry heavy plasma guns on all of, it wasn't everybody, but, within reason, it's like, oh, I've got 2 heavy plasmas, and everybody's carrying plasma and wearing carapace armor and all this crazy stuff. And it was all by force. And another player on the team had mines, so he would always if he captured somebody, he'd just throw them into a slime mine or whatever it was. And he had he kept a clipboard with a running list of names and gang names of all these people he would take. And every once in a while, you're like, I'm taking them back. I'm bringing her back. And you'd go after them, and that would be part of the mission. That would be the whole mission, is essentially just to rescue an old character. And I feel like X-wing could do with some of that simple, kind of campaign style, never-ending sort of thing, because you build a story amongst your friends of your ship list and your pilots, like you have with your Decimator. So
right,
it's something you never forget, or at least some of you try to forget, and find you out years later.
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about that topic, I feel that the permanence of, at least in the campaign that Phil, you and I were playing, the permanence of death of that pilot, that it does hit pretty hard. Like, if you really invest your time and like your effort into it, like we had done many missions, and I was trying to like really get into the character and like, oh yeah, this is whatever name his was. This is like Rear Admiral Turn or Lieutenant Turn. He's trying to get to be an admiral, and then all of a sudden he dies. I felt so demoralized. I don't think we played in that story arc.
That's kind of the only.
Yeah, I think that was the end of that playtest.
Yeah, it was, because then it's like, well, geez, now what? And the poor guy died in his escape pod. It just didn't work.
Yeah, we had in our Blood Bowl campaign, they had one card. The old days, you had these cards you got that you could play on the other player during the game, and one of them was called Peaked, Peaked. It basically said this character can never again get experience, no matter what they do, and it was just like, oh, they've hit their peak. We had to ban that card because there were almost fist fights over it, because it's like, oh, because you played on anybody. It wasn't like a random thing. You're like, I'm taking your star player, peaked. He's never getting better. And so we actually had to ban that card because it was so demoralizing. And typically our campaigns, but they would fall apart because people were like, oh, that was the one I invested everything in, and he's dead or she's dead. And I don't know that I feel like bringing another one up from scratch again. So that is the downside to it. They do kind of peter out when people get crushed too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be careful to not allow that to, try and limit how soul-crushing losing a guy can be. Or,
that's why that last roll, after the game, and Hot AC has that touch of that too, where if your guy was, destroyed in the mission, you get that last chance, and it always feels like it's like just nerve wracking. Like, oh god, okay, please don't roll a 6, please don't roll a 6, please don't roll a 6. And in Hot AC, it's what is it? 2 hits is kills
Something
a character,
like that, yeah.
and I had to roll on it once, and my character wasn't even like high level, and I was like, oh my god, I really don't want this. And you roll one at a time because you're afraid. It's kind of like peeling the Band-Aid off real slow versus rolling both, and I'll listen to how everybody reacts. I don't want to look at the dice. I do love that part of it. I do feel like X-Wing is missing a little bit of that. For me, that would really suck me into it. But at the same time, I'd be terrified every week of that one ship. Like, I'm just going to fly it off the board.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
done.
what
I'm
you
out.
usually always have too. Yeah, ways to preserve your pilots and protect them are always important too. So yeah, flying off the board is a very common one.
Yep. But you made sure I didn't do that, did you?
I had to take that guy down, man.
Yeah. Just in case anyone's curious, because now that the Band-Aid is off and the wound is fully opened, I remember clearly this match. There were so many, I believe, like TIE interceptors or something like that, and he kept on barrel rolling them right into my path. I don't think the thing moved more than an inch in any direction, and he was just bumping it. I was just like, oh, sweet Jesus, I can't move. I just got to get to the edge of the board. Engage the hyperdrive. I got to get out of here. And nope, too late.
Oh, that's horrible. And he built something just to destroy your ship.
Just to kill
specifically.
It was
underhanded even. Yeah.
That
you
is
kill him in a fair fight, that's one thing. But if you're like, I'm designing this with
you don't understand, Jim. You don't understand, J-Bot.
Oh,
you didn't fly against this thing. It was just take a ship off the board every time it shot.
Yeah, but you don't understand. That's how I feel in the game now. Like, every time I play the game, I feel like that's always, how many dice? Hold on. You had to buy how many starter sets to get enough dice to roll against me? Okay, let me roll my one evade. I've gotten to the point now where I just roll the evade ahead of time. Say, there you go. Ding, see if you can beat that. Because it's like there's no hope. It's not like I got 3 or 4 evade to roll against you. Here's my 1 evade or 2 evade if I'm feeling saucy, sort of thing. So the whole game feels like that to me. So this Decimator doesn't really sound that overpowered.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I do say that with campaigns like Blood Bowl or Necromunda or Mordheim, that sometimes you do get someone who breaks out so far ahead in the game that it gets
it can certainly happen. Yeah, it can certainly happen.
Yeah. It's important to build sort of pressure release valves into the campaign to keep that from being, on one hand, you want to make sure that you reward players from doing well, so they have a reason to do well. But on the other hand, you don't ever want players to feel like they don't have a chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I know in building a campaign system like that, I don't even know where I'd begin, but in Blood Bowl, the old Blood Bowl, like the difference in team values, for example, allowed the lower value, like more cards, and those cards I mentioned, one of them, were incredibly powerful. So just getting 1 or 2 extra was actually really balancing in a lot of ways, because it's like, ooh, burst ball, so that touchdown of your super touchdown guy he boom, it just blows up and he loses it, and we almost re-kick in a sense. So stuff like that, you're right, kind of needs to be there to balance it, because it is easy for a team or list or however to get really far ahead. But for me, you always wanted like an entry point. You always wanted for somebody brand new to be able to jump into it and feel like at some way they felt relatively level, or I've got to go against this really big guy. I know I'm going to get thrashed, but at the end of it, the rewards for playing against that guy, even though I lost, are worth it. They help catch me up faster versus being on equal playing fields and playing against them and moving really slow. So.
Yeah, I think that one thing that can happen in a lot of campaigns is that you can have players get progressively stronger. So like, on your first mission, say let's assign like an arbitrary value, so you have a strength of 1, and then by the end of the campaign you have a strength of 5, right? And those numbers don't mean too much, but I don't really like that, because then you can't have players drop into the campaign because they'll be outmatched unless you have like a catch-up mechanic for them to like get stronger faster, I guess. But if you're let's say like in the context of X-wing, if you are playing a campaign and you have pilots who survive missions and get more experience and get stronger, then it's important to increase the cost of those pilots in a fair way, so that you can't just level up a generic pilot to be as big and as bad as Suntier Fell with stealth device and auto thrusters and push the limit, and still cost the same that he did at the start of the campaign, right? Because then you'll just have you can get a snowball effect where once you get a certain amount of strength, you just start beating everybody and getting even stronger and stronger. It's important to make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen. But on the other hand, you also don't want you have to be careful about seesawing. So there's two things to watch out for in campaigns. The first one is snowballing, and the second one is seesawing. So seesawing is where this can happen in a campaign where like both players are working against each other to accumulate enough points to win or take over territory on a map, and they're the more progress one guy makes, the further away the other guy gets from victory. So like a good way to think about this is in like say you have a campaign and you're using like a map, right? So I call this the map domination model. So this is very similar if you ever played Risk. You have a game map with territories on it, and the goal is for one of you to take over the whole map with your armies. So in this case, with your X-wing squads. And the more territory you control, the closer you are to victory, and the further away your opponent is from victory. So that's fine in Risk, but if you have a campaign system in X-wing, you have to be, and you're worried about players increasing in strength and having a snowball effect from like early victories, make you more likely to have victories later on. A lot of times people will build in mechanisms that make it harder for players who are closer to winning, right? So I've seen campaign proposals where players who got closer to winning got fewer and fewer squad points. So if you were 2 missions away from winning, maybe you would be going into missions with like 75 points to your enemy's 100 points. And so obviously that makes it a lot easier for the guy with 100 points to win. So the natural state of the campaign is pushing the game balance, each player's progress towards victory, towards the middle. So when one player gets strong, one player gets close to victory, the other player gets very strong all of a sudden and pushes them back to the middle. And then, whenever one player is getting close to victory, the game just pushes them back to the middle. And you can end up with an infinite campaign. So, which can be bad if you're trying to actually like win the campaign and end it. This is kind of a bad thing because it'll just repeat itself infinitely. So that's one thing to look out for. You have to make sure that you can, just think ahead in terms of like how the campaign ends. how long you want it to go, and what happens when people actually play it through to the end. And just be careful about that kind of thing. There's other ways to set up a campaign too. So we just talked about map domination. FFG almost always, in like all the campaigns that they release with their huge ships, like the one that we're playing through right now with the Corvette, there's a certain like mission track, right? You start off playing one mission, and then depending on who wins, you go to a different mission. Then depending on who wins that, you go to one of two missions, and then from there you go to your finale. And there's, you're going to play 4 missions, but they may be different ones depending on who wins what mission. But the campaign lasts exactly 4 missions, no matter what way you do it, and you always know, what the last mission is going to be and when you're going to play it, and what you need to do to win the campaign.
So you can get your butt kicked the whole campaign.
Right. And you can still win the last mission.
But win the last mission and win the whole campaign, yeah.
Yeah, right. And that's important because, in let's say like the Corvette campaign, the more missions you win during the campaign, the easier it is for you to win the last mission. But it's theoretically still possible for you to win the last mission if you've just messed up all the previous missions and lost them. Theoretically, anyway. We'll find out when we actually do that mission. I think it's actually going to be super hard for the rebels. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, the 4th mission?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole campaign, I know that's not what we're talking about. That whole campaign's very slanted against the rebels. So I'd be scared if you go that you lost all the missions route, like how bad it's going to be.
Yeah.
Just in general. So.
Exactly.
But I get that for like Fantasy Flight's campaigns. Obviously, they're just these kind of short story arcs more than anything else, and
right.
And they're not meant for like a real kind of hard hitting. To me, they don't feel like they're meant for a real hard hitting kind of super competitive games. They're meant more of kind of introduce you to all the pieces of the introduce you to all the pieces and kind of general tactics of the ships involved, and not. We take them a lot further, I think, than they intended.
Sure.
In a lot of
yeah,
ways.
we're definitely putting a lot more competitive sweat into those games than what they were originally designed to handle. I think we're overstressing them, but
yeah, we're definitely breaking at least a few of them. It feels like with the earlier campaigns or the earlier just general simple missions. So, it sounds like. I know we're not going into crazy amounts of setup, but it sounds like that's something that I wonder if you guys ever go back and look at some of those older ones that you've done and say, hey, this was really balanced in Wave 3, for example. We mentioned way earlier in the game, but now we're at Wave, whatever we are, 9, 10, 50. Like, is it even balanced anymore? Is it easy enough for somebody to take 1 or 2 cards that break everything that I had planned to keep it in balance? So, and it might be impossible, really. It might be an impossible task, and just say, hey, this was a snapshot in time of the game, and the campaign is left in that kind of state, knowing that one card can kind of change everything going forward.
Yeah, seismic torpedoes.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Mentioned that on the last episode. So.
Such a real pain in the buttock for campaign design.
You just have to make them illegal.
Essentially,
seismic. Yeah, either that or these are not obstacles for seismic torpedoes. So
seismic torpedoes have no effect. It's going to be a common clause in my missions.
Yeah.
So there's one more model for a campaign that I wanted to touch on. This is one that I most often use and advocate for people to use, and it's a model for a campaign that I call Race to the Finish. And in this model, essentially the way you get to the end of the campaign and win it is by winning games and getting closer to the finish, but you only move forward. So like a good way to think about this is a foot race, like a 100-meter dash or something, where you have a line of people and they're all in their own lanes and they're running towards the finish line, and whoever gets there first can win. But obviously in this, the way you take steps forward is by playing games of X-wing, and depending on if you win or not, you take X number of steps forward. And the finish line is a finale mission, which can end the campaign for you, or your opponent maybe, depending on how you're setting it up. But it's like a campaign-ending type of game. So what's nice about this is that winning is rewarded. You get closer to your finish, but you're not pushing people further back from their victory if they lose, if you beat them. Because you only get closer to the finish of the campaign. So you can't have like a seesaw effect because there's no way back.
Right. So it's less like, oh, I'm ahead, no, you're ahead, no, I'm ahead, you're ahead, but nobody ever actually gets to the freaking end.
So are you saying more like, okay, so say the four of us are racing through this mission kind of tree or lanes.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it to the last mission first, for example, you run a mission that's basically the end mission for the whole campaign for all of us.
It depends on what you're doing. So if you're playing with like 2 people, then yeah, I would say have that mission end the whole campaign.
But is that a make or break? So like, say I've won 2 missions the whole time and you've won 10. And I beat you in the last mission. Woo, I won, sort of thing. Because that's what the Fantasy Flight ones are in a way. It's essentially all one path. It's all one lane, no matter which one you're going through. But the end mission is the only one that ultimately makes or breaks the whole thing.
How I normally set this up is if it worked the way you're talking about, then there would essentially be no incentive to win games other than to just get the campaign over with. There'd be no incentive to win any game except the finale mission, because the finale mission would be the only one that counts for anything.
Mm-hmm.
How I normally set it up is there's a finale mission. You get to it by winning games, reaching that line first, reaching that mission first. And if you're the guy who reached that mission, who triggers it, you've won all the missions up to that point that are necessary. Then if you win in the finale mission, then you win the campaign. If you lose, then you haven't lost the campaign, but then I then go and hand the defender, the guy who hasn't won all those missions, hasn't earned his way up to the finish line. I usually have a like in my campaign system, if you are that guy who hasn't won all those missions yet, hasn't earned his way to the finale mission, if you win that first finale mission, then you get to have like your own chance to win the campaign. But then if you lose that next mission, the other guy wins. So
So I think like if you say the mission is you're fighting over a system, and whoever gets to 10 victory points first gets to do the final attack on the enemy base.
Exactly. It's almost always a final attack on the enemy base.
But if that guy does the final attack on the enemy base and loses, then the defender has the chance to do the same thing on the other guy.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, exactly.
The defender flips around and does his final attack, and he loses the campaign. So instead of flip-flopping back and forth, you keep doing the final attack until one of you wins.
Right.
That way, it's like the guy who's been winning gets the chance to finish the other guy off. But if he doesn't do it, then the underdog gets the chance to try to usurp the game, no matter how many victory points he has, and win.
Right.
And so I think that's a really interesting way to do it, elegant way to do it. So instead of
the top dog gets an advantage in that he essentially gets the chance to win the game first, before the other guy can win.
Mm-hmm.
But if you blow that chance, then the other guy also then gets a chance to win.
Yeah, then the last game becomes a winner-take-all sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you're playing this in a 2+ player context, if you're playing with more than 2 players, then usually I tone down the consequences to that mission. So instead of ending the campaign, if you lose one of those finale missions as the defender, as the underdog, then essentially you get crippled. Your squadron, you lose a bunch of ships that are on your squadron roster. You can't launch those finale missions. You can't launch those big base attacks by yourself. But you can still play games and influence the course of the campaign by, getting points for your team, helping your teammates win. But you yourself are you're taken out of the running for completely closing out the campaign. But you still get to fight, and you're still combat effective. But there's serious consequences for losing that last game, because your base has been attacked, been destroyed.
Kind of like the Death Star approaching Yavin, and then they blow it, and then the rebels come out. This is their chance.
Yeah. So that's what I am going for. That's the model that I'm going with right now in my campaign system.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Pretty cool way to do it. Cool. All right, so we got to cover 2 different ways to play X-wing tonight. We talked about the Mario Kart and also about campaigns, because there are a lot of people out there that are kind of discussing it and trying to set things up. So it is good to think about these things if you are trying to plan it, and really good insight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Well, the beeping on the monitor tells us that we're getting close to Endor now. And I do want to thank everybody for once again listening to the Shuttle Tydirium podcast. And I hope you'll tune in. Next week is Thanksgiving for us here in the United States. We might put an episode out that week. We're not sure. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
So if not, it might.
You could always give me the controls for a week.
Quite possible. All right, guys. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you later.
Good night.
Yeah, have a good one.
Thank you.